So I fucking lost it and yelled at my girl. And when she reminded me of why I couldn't lose my cool so completely, it made me feel impossibly shittier that I almost did. But instead of being angry at me like she should have been, she was her usual forgiving self, caressing me and loving me like I wasn't a complete fuck-up that nearly risked her safety because of something so fucking stupid. I held her in my lap, shoving the anger down so I wouldn't hurt her or say something mean and asinine. And she knew just how to make realize how much of an asshole I was being. Kissing me and loving me, she covered me in it, extinguishing the flames inside my mind with her touch and love. Then telling me the filthiest joke I think I had ever heard, which is saying a whole fucking lot. And hearing it come out of Bella's mouth made me smile despite the whole thing. Because that was just my girl. She would do whatever it took to make me feel better. Despite her shitty bitter mood, she pushed it all aside for me, filthy nun-jokes and all. And not even a blush. I studied her condition even harder that night because of it. I knew I couldn't fix her. In fact, I probably knew better than Carlisle with all of the information I had gained on the subject. But I still had the need to understand her, maybe make shit easier, so I kept reading and learning, taking note of little things she did that were related to it. Her posture in school, the way she always hid from people, the nightmares and the anxiety attacks after she was touched. But when she came that night, there was still that same fucking desperation. Almost like she was trying to prove to herself that she could be normal and asking for my help, as she pushed my willpower and libido to its breaking point, just trying to get me to grope her again. I had to be the only man on the planet wishing his girlfriend would just fucking stop trying to get him to feel her up already. I was seriously considering changing my morning shower routine to nights. And with every blatant rejection always came the bitterness and frustration that made me want to pull my goddamn hair out. I would tell I loved her every fucking night, hoping she would understand that it just wasn't as big a deal as she was making it. Thursday was worse for her. I don't know why or what snapped, but she was impossibly sadder. I still walked to her to every class, kissing her and loving her in front of everyone, trying to make her feel as normal as I could. I was wondering if she felt this way after Christmas and I was as inconsolable, fucking helpless. So when I got home, I did the only thing I could. I got a little obsessed, I'll admit, locking myself away every afternoon and evening to learn more about it all. Mostly it was for Bella, but honestly, it was really fucking fascinating. The way the brain reacts to situations and traumas, working to protect itself by subconsciously forcing her to react to certain stimuli. Her condition was so severe that her subconscious mind wouldn't even allow me to invade a space so personal to her. I understood why, even if I couldn't understand why it made her so upset. I began drifting to subjects unrelated to her phobia. Things that seemed familiar to me, because if I was being honest, I was more like some of the patient cases in those books, and I allowed myself to admit. But I didn't have the time to focus on it, because when my girl came that night I was expecting the desperation. But it never came. She leaned up and gave me a soft kiss on the lips. Sweet and chaste and full of something I couldn't quite place. I was so fucking relieved that I didn't have to push her away. But the look in her eyes as she pulled herself away made my heart clench. Still, I didn't understand it. Until the next morning when I got my cookies. Defeat. That was the kiss and the look in her eyes. She felt fucking defeated. And I knew that feeling so well, because I had felt it only a few weeks prior. Friday should have been a good day. With the coming weekend, and all. It started out just like every other day that week. I walked her around school like normal, feeling beyond relieved that most of the stares and whispers had completely subsided by then. I rushed to her classrooms, after every bell, where I would find her waiting for me like I always asked. Sometimes I think it only made her feel worse, having to be escorted around the school by her boyfriend. But it had to fucking be done. I was still touching her skin every chance I got. I felt so shitty about the nighttime incidents, and more than little responsible for her defeat. Having to push her away like I wasn't fucking dying to do it. Probably making her feel inferior when I promised myself I was going to do the opposite. Then the situation got impossibly worse at lunch. We were eating the cookies, and I really didn't want to eat them, and not because they weren't fucking delicious, because they were. But they were tainted, and they made me feel shitty as I caressed her neck, and watched her swallow them down. Jazz and Brandon walked in the room, like two horny jackrabbits, that had nested in the janitor's closet for the last 20 minutes. And when they came to our table I wanted to fucking punch him. Of all the things he could do in front of her, he had to grope Brandon. Rub it in my girl's face a little more, prick. It wasn't his fault, but it didn't stop me from glowering at him the entire hour. Not that he was paying any attention. Bella just spent the hour staring at the tabletop, rubbing my knee, and swallowing her defeat. I was done. Just fucking finished with the whole ridiculous thing. And I couldn't even really call it ridiculous, because I had been there. Trying to feel love, and forcing it to come so desperately it pulled me under. This was pulling her under. And I wouldn't sit back, and watch it fucking defeat her. When I got home I searched relentlessly. The books, the internet, message boards, therapeutic references. Fucking anything that could help her. And when I finally found it, I knew what I had to do. It was a simple concept really, to desensitize her gradually to the negative stimuli. It wasn't a cure-all, by any means. It wasn't something that could ease her phobia completely, because her phobia was linked to her flashes and visions caused by the PTSD, which wouldn't be affected by the technique. But I didn't give her the flashes, and the visions, just the feelings, so I had hope that it could possibly be effective, if only on me, that it was just enough to give her that one thing. And if done in a long-term situation could maybe even ease her tension around other people, even if she still couldn't touch them. It was still risky though. It was risky because if it didn't work, it would only make shit worse for the both of us, but I still had to try, and I knew she'd really fucking want me to. So I spent my evening researching the technique, and trying to perfect it in my head to make necessary modifications. And I felt like such a goddamn pervert, because I was spending 4 hours trying to find out how to cop the feel on my girl. I couldn't do it in the house, especially at night, because if shit went wrong, and she freaked out, we'd be discovered. And I'd probably be hastily detained by local law enforcement. When she came that night at 10, looking fucking depressed and defeated, I resolved to save my idea until the last possible moment. I didn't want her getting her hopes up all night, and all day just to be disappointed. She didn't talk much during dinner, while I stroked her hair, and held her close to me. We went to bed early. She was down and fucking glum, and I was half dreading, half anticipating the coming day. I held her close, and kissed her head softly, telling her once again how much I fucking loved her. It always made her smile wider when I emphasized that kind of shit with profanity. When we woke up the next morning, and she got ready to leave, I asked her to meet me at the gazebo at noon. She froze as she looked at me from the door, and her expression was fucking agonizing. I nearly told her right then about what I was planning. But it would give her 6 hours to get her hopes up. And bring your iPod. I grumbled while I lay on the bed, running my fingers through my hair, and squinting at her in the doorway. I already checked the weather for the afternoon, and it didn't call for rain or clouds, much like last weekend, which made the river meadow perfect for the experiment. She opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something, but then snapped it shut and nodded at me, leaving the room without asking any questions.